Hello, hello. Alistair, that light right above your head.
Light? Really?
Yeah. It's just the way your webcam is.
Okay.
So you'll need to
Hang on.
maybe angle your screen down
And
so that
well, I'll move it back to where it was.
okay.
Is that any better?
Well, look, I can see you. It's just
Yep.
you. Oh, this is the thing about the technical difficulties.
How's that? I can change the light intensity on my thing.
Yeah, it's just it looks like you're not looking at me because your webcam is
Oh,
kind of.
I see. Okay, I'll try and be good and talk to the screen. Sorry, I need to be talking up there, don't I? So
No, you need to talk down.
my
I'm down here.
camera's up here though.
Oh, is it? I don't think it's using that. I think it's using your other. It's using your other camera.
No, it's not.
It did. Your finger was over it then.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, and that's
Another
horrible.
lie.
And that's a rubbish one as well.
Oh, is it? This is what happens, isn't it? We were in the little studio thing. Oh, that makes it sound all really posh, doesn't it? We've got three people watching already. Goodness. So I think we can probably might need to get you a bit closer to the screen. Are you able to get closer?
Yeah.
That's better.
I'll work from this.
That's better. It's just where the light is right over your head.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
Kind of looks like you got the sun on you.
Yeah.
That is better.
That's it.
That's better. Do you see, that was when you changed it last minute before we got going.
Well, I knocked something, unfortunately, and it went from my good camera to my rubbish camera. So that's why we've got that problem.
Okay, well we can still hear you. It just sounds a little bit quieter. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Hang on. Good evening, Chris. Hello. Oh, David. Goodness me. This is interesting to see you. And Nicola joined the Halo. I think that was talking about you. So just to let you know, I can actually put people's details on the screen here. So this is Chris. Good evening, one and all. And hang on a minute. Great to have some honest. And this is David here. That's just so great to have honest problems we all experience. We flipping do, don't we? Nice to see you on here. I haven't seen you for a long time, young man. And here we go. Enjoying. Hang on, where is she? And this is Nicola. That was enjoying the.
That's just harsh.
Enjoying the Halo. Oh goodness, do you know I don't normally get this. I don't get people joining so quickly, so I just was expecting us just to kind of chat away for a few minutes, but it's lovely to see everybody, actually people coming on here. So thank you everybody for joining us tonight to Chinwag Thursday, and welcome to Alistair Hall.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, and apologies for the rubbish camera. Everything was going swimmingly until 30 seconds before Liz went live, and then I hit something, and now it's not.
Oh, bless you. Listen, as I've said to everybody, so if you put in your if you put a message on, I can put it on screen, but you'll need to put your name next to it, because Melon, which is a weird name, but it's the streaming tool that I use, basically they won't show it like on the StreamYard does. It says who it is, but this one doesn't. Hang on. So great. Hang on. Oh, you're going to a quiz, are you? Hang on a minute. So it must dip out. I have a quiz to attend at 8:15. Oh, well, I think you should delay the quiz now, because actually you'll miss Alistair, but you'll be able to see it because I always put it on featured right at the top anyway. So don't worry, David. And I can't even remember the last time I saw you. It must be 10 years. But anyway, thank you for joining us, even if it's for a short length of time. So back over to you, young Alistair. I like saying young to everybody. It's great because and thank you for joining us. And
thank you for inviting me.
We met It's probably a couple of years ago, isn't
Yeah.
it now?
I'm
And I
not sure
think
if we ever did actually meet. You were there such a short time. I'm not sure we actually met.
I'm saying nothing. Yes, it's because they were so good that I stayed for a fortnight, isn't it? No, so we didn't meet, did we? But we spoke. We were
Yeah,
going to meet actually, because I think were you doing something at Guy's and St Thomas's Hospital
yeah,
in London before the pandemic hit?
yeah.
So yeah.
I rolled off that piece of work a week before everything got nasty, basically.
Oh
So,
my God.
but they were already gearing up. They knew there were going to be issues, so there were lots of people leaving rooms for urgent conversations and
Oh,
such.
I'm not surprised. Oh, that sounds, yeah. By the way, this is Michelle. Michelle is saying, "Hey, hi,
Oh,
Michelle. Hello, darling. Nice to see you on here. Thank you for joining us. How's your head? How's your head? Is your head better?" So we've got Chris who had COVID last week, and he works with me, and Chris is my wordsmith, and Michelle is my wonderful my graphics lady, and yeah, so she wasn't very well today, so I'm. Oh, you're better now. That's good then, love. That's good. I'm glad. I'm glad. But look, let's just cut to the chase, Alistair, and get some introductions, proper introductions.
okay.
Never mind all this waffly chinwag. Right, give us whereabouts, explain to the lovely ladies and gentlemen whereabouts you're living. I know where you live, obviously.
Okay, I live in Harpenden, which is in Hertfordshire. It's the way I always describe it is it's midway between St Albans and Luton, so it's about 30 miles north of London.
Wasn't Harpenden supposed to be one of the most expensive places in the
It,
UK?
it, it feels that way, yes. I think at one stage it was in the top 10. Yeah, so it's
What
a bit
can I
silly money.
say?
Not the part I live. There's definitely
Oh, I don't know whether I
different
believe that.
parts, but yeah, there's lots of footballers, rugby players, and such like, and very, very wealthy people around.
Okay, right. Well, you know, and give us some of the background to. So you worked for BT for how many years? Remind me.
I can never quite do the maths. It was 37 years.
That's man and
I
boy.
joined when I was 7, and so yeah, no, yeah, 37 years.
Sorry, I
I
was on a time delay then. I knew it was funny, but I wasn't. I've been quick enough. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
Oh my
no,
goodness.
I background. When I left university, I actually did a degree in environmental biology, and this was very early 80s, and in those times there was just zero interest or very little knowledge even about the environment and all the sorts of things that we're talking about so much on the
Have a
news
chat with
now.
my husband. Yes.
And there's just basically there were no jobs around, and after 8-9 months of searching, I'd applied for a job with Thames Water, which uh, I was considerably overqualified for. And I got a letter from them saying, sorry, you've not been called for interview. By the way, you might be interested to know there were over 600 applicants for this job. And at that stage, I realised there's no future here. Um,
Oh, at
and at
what
the time,
time?
BT were recruiting graduates, so I joined as an open graduate. Um, and for the first 7-8 years of my career, I just did operational jobs, service jobs, so operator services, these sorts of things I was involved in, and then got drawn into quality and improvement. And the first thing that I got involved in was TQM, which really dates it. So that was
So you have to tell those that don't know what that is.
what
Yeah.
TQM is. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's such a long time since I've done it. So
Can you remember the acronym?
it,
What it stands for?
yeah, so it stands for total quality management. And many of the principles, which we know now with whether you call it business improvement, continuous improvement, the same principles were there. So very much about focus on the customer. Um, there was we had lots of focus in terms of they called them quality circles then, but it was small quality improvement teams. You'd do quality improvement projects, rather in the same way that nowadays anyone that's familiar with things like continuous improvement or Six Sigma will be used to working in a structured step-by-step way. to solve problems. We were very much training people in doing that. Lots of focus on having a clear purpose in why the business was there. So many of the things that we'd recognise now were also in TQM, in total quality management.
And how long ago? So when would that have been then? What kind of year are we looking at?
I was thinking about it. It must have been 1988 that I first got involved. I first got involved on a project, and then applied and was recruited as what was known as a TQM facilitator, which nowadays we'd probably see as a coach, would be a kind of term for that. I met the Mrs. Hall through it. She joined BT as a TQM facilitator as well.
Mrs. Hall. Wow.
And that carried on for several years until and another key sort of learning of change, I guess, is that BT as a whole, and back in those days, you're talking about an organisation with 200,000 plus people, all in the UK.
Madness, isn't it? Yeah.
Now they're more like 90,000 spread globally. So it's an organisation that's changed massively, and a lot of that started in the early 90s with a very, very large organisational change program that went on, and TQM went out of the window at that time, basically.
Yeah.
As tends to happen with any change, that it's very difficult to keep the consistency when other things are changing around you. So that kind of stopped. But that was my introduction to it all. Yeah.
I was going to say it's Laurie's on as well. Hello, Laurie. Hi. Laurie Heald. We know you. Yeah, you do know her. Anyway, Alistair, you just not met her yet. But yeah, I suppose because it was such a beast, wasn't it? I was going to ask you, how was it difficult how easy was it to tame?
Well, I think the point is that with all of this, and so yes, it sounds huge, but you don't do these things massively. There's the phrase about when you're eating the elephant, do it one piece at a time, and it was very much the case for this. You don't try and change 245,000 people overnight, because it would just be crazy. So you do it bit by bit. And rolling forward, so working through the 90s, I was involved in various quality improvement things of one sort or another, where it was supporting projects, coaching people, running projects. I got quite involved in quality management systems for a while as a lead auditor, and got involved in business excellence models. But then in the early 2010s, BT embarked on what we then called lean service, but has since morphed into continuous improvement. And that again was a very, very large culture program. But so to hark back to those issues in those early TQM days, but easier for me to talk probably about more recent stuff. Again, you don't try and do it en masse. You break it down into bite-sized chunks.
What was it like?
That's what I was doing. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, when we look at that size organization, even in bite-sized chunks, you've still got people who are going to be resistant. How did you get through that? Have you got any examples of situations that you had to kind of deal with?
So basically there will always be resistance. So if people are familiar with the whole concept of change and the Kubler-Ross change curve, she talks there about how when people are faced with any sort of change, whether it's positive, whether it's negative, first of all, there might be some sort of denial. That's not going to affect me. Might get angry about it. And then gradually, as they begin to realize that actually this is going to happen, it can lead to, that sort of trough of despair before they start to move back up again.
I told you, didn't I, about I gave you that example of where I was doing some training in Bridgewater, and we used kind of like the change curve, and we used a specific example, which was for anybody who's been involved in continuous improvement. There was probably about 15 people in this room, and basically I stood at the front and said, I want you all to sing a song. You've got to choose a song. You only need to sing like a verse or a chorus of it. But what I want you to do is actually stand up and sing this verse or sing this chorus. you know, and just I'll give you a couple of minutes to think about it. Oh my goodness. Well, most people looked absolutely horrified. And there was this one woman who she just took the bull by the horns, and she basically said, right, I've got a song. And before I could even explain what the actual the kind of the activity was about and why we were setting it up like that, she stood up and started singing. And then I actually said, well, actually, you've just gone through the whole of the change curve in kind of
Yeah.
like less than
Yeah.
5 minutes,
Yeah.
whereas everybody else was I kind of explained it to them and said, right, that situation is where, because Kubler, the change curve comes, it's sort of like the grief cycle, isn't it? It's kind of
That's where it originated from. Yeah.
yeah.
But you can any change, positive, negative, people will go through these sorts of emotional reactions, and it is inevitable, quite honestly. You know, for some people it might be like that, like your woman standing up and singing a song, and for other people they will be like, oh, why am I doing this? I'm not doing this. No, why am I doing this? And as other people are starting to get on board, they're feeling more and more scared about it.
We had a bit of that.
Why not? And that resistance is, I was going to say resistance is futile, but it is inevitable. It will be there. It's a fact of life that emotional impact will happen. But it happens at different speeds for different people, and also it can go that going down into that trough can, for some people it's just a little blip, and for some people it can be a really big thing. Yeah.
It's a pit.
So in terms of how did I deal with resisting people, so I will give an example.
People resisting you, really? Or
pardon?
I say people resisting what was actually happening, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. And so with all of these changes, the really key things in the way you manage them all the way through, and probably the biggest one in terms of overcoming resistance is involvement. So having a really clear reason why we're making the change in the first place, and it might be the burning platform scenario. We have to do this for survival, or it might be something that's much more local. It might be something to do with customer dissatisfaction. It might just be to do with our day-to-day things that can frustrate us. Might be drivers for change. So you need that reason, but then as you begin to communicate it, and you need to communicate it consistently all the way through, you need to be as much as possible involving people. So can you involve them in a change project? At the very least, have they got opportunity to speak up and say, well, actually, I've got a problem with this, or have you considered doing that? So, there's pluses and minuses, or not pluses and minuses. There's different reasons for having that communication channel.
Yeah, Michelle's saying, she says it sounds like a whole 2021, so many changes. Some things, as you say, where quick process, some will definitely take longer. Yeah. And I suppose actually, if we look, and I always come back to this, if we look at what happened, what's happened, like you said, you were at Guy's and St Thomas's, weren't you, before the pandemic hit? Everybody's kind of, I always come back to this, because I think actually if you want to explain to somebody about the change curve, you just need to talk about the last 2 years, don't you? It's different when you're working in an organization, and so that the change that we had to all endure because of the pandemic is very different, because it was enforced. But actually, when you're having a change enforced on you in an organization, that's very difficult, isn't it? For some people it is. Some people can really see the merit in it straight away, and other people just find it very difficult, don't they?
I think you really have to appeal to what people value. So when you're sort of giving your, whatever you want to call it, your compelling change story, your change narrative, whatever it is, basically communicating out, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it, and we need your help and support, is appeal to what values to those people. Appeal to the values of those people. So, if you're doing some sort of initiative that's about cost reduction, and you're working with a team that are really focused on the customer and giving great customer service, then you don't talk to them about cost reduction. You talk about things because that will just get the hackles up. And vice versa. If you talk to people who are very focused on numbers and widgets and cost or whatever it might be, and you talk about the fluffy stuff, that equally might not appeal to them. So you got to appeal to the values, and you can see it when you look at some of the great speakers. And so if you look at John F. Kennedy with his famous putting the man on the moon by the end of the 1970s, 1960s talk, if you talk about Martin Luther King with I have a dream, if you listen to Winston Churchill, all of those people are appealing to the values of the different people. So Kennedy was appealing to sort of the pioneering spirit of the Americans. Churchill in his speeches appeals to the gritty Brits with their backs against the wall. They appeal to the values, and that's what you need to do when you're making that change narrative as well, and to try and get people on board, because otherwise, there's lots of reasons why people resist. It might be they've got a feeling of a loss of status. They might simply think that it's not going to work. There's the classic, we've seen it all before, it didn't work last time.
So we're not going to do it this time. Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the favorites, of course, when you're someone like myself who maybe is from outside the organization coming in to make change happen, is who are you to tell me how to do my work? What do you know about my work? So the more that you can involve local people, and when we were doing our continuous improvement program, there was a very, very big focus on the change agents being local people, supported by central experts, if you like, but really trying to keep things local, because they're the people with the credibility. So really trying to involve them. And then just going back to your question about how do you deal with resisting people. So I've found that, yes, it can be difficult, but some of the people that cause you the most pain over periods can actually become your greatest advocates, your greatest supporters.
Absolutely.
I can remember once I was doing a process mapping exercise with a group, and a manager, so again, this was part of continuous improvement, and a team were mapping out their process. And the manager, there were 6 people from his team were going to be helping me on this brown paper mapping exercise. And he pulled me to one side, just to warn you, I'll put Fred there. He just doesn't go with this at all. He's completely against it. But if anyone can change him, you can. He said, thanks for that. But again, it's all about appealing to what matters to them. And as you know, with brown paper mapping, one of the things you can do, process mapping, is, as well as identifying significant process change, you can also identify quite a lot of quick wins. Simple little aggravations, things that people cause people annoyance every day. Pick some of those out, fix them, and people start to come on board. And you'll find that Fred, who was is going to be so anti, actually becomes one of your strongest players. And I've seen it time and time again, by actually giving them some faith that actually maybe it isn't the same as last time, and maybe I have got a voice in this.
Yeah. And just leaving Fred is really so I was working with an organization last year, and kind of there were Freds, and Fred types, and actually they were kind of saying, well, we'll leave those Freds because it's too difficult. But actually, if you win them over, then they're like you say, they can be your loudest speaker. They will shout. If they've been involved and they feel it, it makes a massive difference, doesn't it?
I think calling out resistance is really important. It's very, very easy to turn a blind eye to it or turn a deaf ear to it, and we won't worry about them, and they'll come on board later, because they won't, and they can niggle away. And you certainly in some teams you can have people that are very, very influential, and they can influence you positively, or they can influence things negatively. And so if you
people listen to them,
just ignore it, then you've got problems. So you have to address it head on.
Yeah. And actually, if you've got those people and you don't get them involved straight away, they have got that influence, like you say, you'll be one step forward, 2 step back, because they'll be like, well, we've not been involved, and therefore why should we do anything? Even if they think it could be the best thing since sliced bread, it's something that they weren't involved in. And you can understand why they feel like that. And actually, maybe there's been a lot of that going on in the past, and people haven't been empowered. Empowerment is my number one,
Yeah.
kind of phrase. I just think it's really, really important to do that. But look,
Yeah.
you left BT. When was it? Why?
End of 2018. Yes.
Okay. And was it just because you'd kind of been there for 37 years and thought, it's time for a change?
It was a combination of things, really. So the unit that I was in. So I've for the last 15 or so years, I've been involved in business improvement in one way or another. But a number of times there have been changes in the way that is applied, the way we're implementing things and such like, which has been absolutely fine. But there have been those changes, and I was on holiday, and I was just mulling things over, and I was just thinking, I think more change is coming along the road,
Mm,
and that's okay. But why not take this opportunity to try something new? And for me, in the a BT lifer, that can be quite a big step, really, quite a scary
yeah,
thing to do.
I bet.
But yeah, don't regret it for one moment. It's been fantastic. I really really enjoyed my time at BT, particularly the last 4 or 5 years where I worked in a group called the Change Practice, which was the center of expertise, if you like, for developing change, Six Sigma, lean methodology, training, coaching, and such like. Worked with some fantastic people, both my immediate colleagues and also the people I was coaching and I was training. It was fantastic. I really really loved it. But yeah, time for a change, and
Yeah.
I decided to take that step, which for me was quite a big one. Yeah.
So we both work for, so you were kind of doing various things, including bits of consulting, weren't you? And then I was working with apprenticeships, and so that's kind of how we met originally, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
And then I was kind of doing the contract stuff for this endpoint assessor, and we're both kind of doing endpoint assessment, which I
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
about you, but actually I find it quite rewarding. It's nice to see the end result of a project. I love seeing it through normally, but actually kind of sitting and listening to somebody be excited
Yeah.
about what they've
Yeah.
done and what
Yeah.
they've actually achieved in an organization. I
Yeah.
just think that bit's
Yeah.
great.
I,
You
I
know.
I always remember learning from a colleague, and it's something I always still try and do now. Is at the start of these assessments, because we used to do internal assessments at BT as well, and people are nervous. It's really a big deal for them, and actually they haven't got anything to be nervous about. And I will always position it that I just want to hear all the great things that you've done, because
Yeah,
it's all great. For some people,
exactly.
it is such a massive shift. When I think of some of the people, again, going back to BT, who, so as I mentioned, we used to develop our coaches from the local operational teams.
Mm,
And on the first, so they'd come along for a 4-day training program. And during that, we'd teach them lean CI methodology, tools and such like. We'd teach them about facilitation. We'd talk to them about coaching. We'd talk to them about what their role as coaches would be. And they were terrified, some of them. No way did they feel that they could do that work. And to see them transformed at the end of the week was just awesome. And it's the same when you see people present back their projects as well, because I know in my head the journey they've been through to get to where they are.
yeah, absolutely. You can kind of you're short circuiting it, aren't you? Doing it that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, are there any other key learnings that you want to kind
Oh,
of we'll kind of end on some key learnings?
okay, I've got my pieces of paper. I'm not sure what was
This is where you get those out.
um, I guess one of the key things is that change takes time. I and this almost goes back to one of your early questions about the pros and cons of, or tell me about change in a large organization, and I talk about doing it in bite-sized chunks. But when you are trying to do it across a large swathe of people, you have to get quite programmatic about it, and we did. And so we'll have X number of weeks in this unit, and then we'll have X number of weeks in that unit, and so on. but one size doesn't fit all. Different units would move at different paces, and that could become difficult sometimes. Not least if I was still supporting one program and or project I was meant to be moving on to another one. So
yeah,
so allowing time, I think, is critical. You don't want to. That's not to say make it endless. You still treat change as a project without a doubt, but recognize that it will ebb and flow, and sometimes things will get a bit stalled, and you have to keep it moving.
yeah.
So that for me is critical. So both time and more than one way to skin a cat, as I say. I think it's critical to have, for any change, very, very clear sponsorship from the top all the way through.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that remains
Totally agree.
consistent. So you've got the senior manager, the executive, whoever it is that wants this change to happen.
They're on board. I said this
They're
to you,
on
didn't
board.
I?
They're on board, and they stay on board as well. But
Yeah.
you know, they're because again, in a big organisation, there's an awful lot of things that, and small organisations as well. It probably isn't much different, but you know, there's an awful lot of stuff that can get in the way, and
Yeah.
it can be really, really difficult for that senior manager to keep that constancy of purpose, and then to also make sure that's cascaded through. So the middle managers are aligned, the first line managers are aligned, and then the organisation, the people themselves are aligned. And if you've not got that alignment, then messages get mixed, and things
It becomes a
start
tick
to fall
box
down the road.
exercise.
Yeah,
It's like I said to you. So you know that I worked in telecoms for a bit, and it did seem very much like a tick box exercise in some ways. Do you know what I mean? Because the hierarchy wasn't on board, and it was very sad in a way, because lots of people were up for it, but they, you know, the level that we were needing, that kind of assistance and that top-down approach just wasn't happening.
Yeah,
We've
no,
got a message on here.
as I say, I think it's absolutely critical, and that you've got that alignment. And something's just come to my head, and it's gone out again.
So I'm just looking at Chris's message. I can't put it on screen, Chris, because it's too long, but I will read it. So I don't know how you'll feel about this, Alistair. He says, I salute anyone who's worked to improve BT. BT are in my top 3 worst organisations to communicate with. Extraordinarily painful due to a lack of clear channels to those you need to speak with. Well, you should have tried where I worked. And just king of the endless cycle that unhappy punters will just give up and go away. I avoid dealing with them even to this current day. Ooh, yeah. Alistair.
No, I think people in the organisation would recognise that themselves. As I say, it is one of the issues of size, and you know, without doubt, I have seen some teams that are absolutely brilliant, and for them, it has completely changed the way in which they work. But even for those teams to then keep on changing things, it's going to be incremental. You know, it's not about step change. It is about incremental change, and so it's slow. But also, let's not kid ourselves.
It's about that. Can you see behind my head?
What?
It's a bit behind my head.
Yes, absolutely.
It's about Kaizen,
yeah,
which is small steps.
Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. There are some units for whom, well, for some units, it probably hasn't even touched. Again, because of sheer size and such like. The approach to it has changed over time. And so whereas there was that specific programmatic rollout, it doesn't work quite in the same way now. So no, I fully understand that. I have a personal pet favorite. Angry organisation, though. I wrote a threatening letter to them yesterday. So.
Oh God! Dare you tell us who?
No.
Okay. We shall leave it.
It wouldn't.
Then we won't talk. We won't talk, Mr. Angry Fun Pearly. If you're old enough to remember Mr. Angry Fun Pearly. You didn't seem to be.
I might be posting on Twitter soon, which seems to be the way in which to get action. So
actually, this is what Chris is asking. Hang on. Can you see? Was it Ryanair?
No.
He says, So not Ryanair, Chris. Sorry about that. We'll have to I'll have a word with him when we close the doors. I'll have a word with him and see what he says. But listen, I really appreciate your time, Alistair. I'm sure we will be meeting up at some point, especially because you live just down the road from my in-laws.
So, yes, St Albans, that's right. Yes, yes.
So listen, thank you ever so much for your time, and I will say good night from Chinwag Thursday. It'll just be probably me next week, but I'm going to be talking a little bit about some of the my favorite little tidbits of continuous improvement tools. We've talked about process mapping, and that is one of my favorites, but I will be back and we'll talk about some other things. So, but yes, thank you ever so much, everybody, and I shall see you next week. All right, goodbye.
Bye, Liz. Thank you.
Cheers. There, you still there?
Yes, still here. Oh, moving screen back. I don't know what happened to the camera.